Hello and welcome back to Grim Survival. Today is August 27th, 2019. I always have to look at the date because I always forget it. Today's Tuesday, August 27th. It is an interesting day here in Chicago. The weather is partly cloudy and stuff, but you know, it was pouring down rain this morning in Indiana when I left, so who knows what the weather is going to bring today. Cooler temperatures, it seems like. But today I'm going to talk about water. It's not exactly rain because we've had enough discussion of rain, but actually water. What is in the tap water, what is in the local streams, lakes, reservoirs, and etc. So, water. I posted a video yesterday. I talked a little bit about water there, and I had some comments about what filters people use, so I just figured I would share my knowledge. Starting with probably 10 years ago, I'd say, I worked for 6 days at a sewage treatment plant or a water treatment facility. Either way, they're both the same. It treats sewer water, and yeah, anyway. The reasons for this was a speeding ticket I had forgot to pay. I was offered the chance to pay the $500 ticket, which was in Texas, and I don't remember why it was so high, late fees or whatever, or go to community service. So I opted community service because I was broke and I figured it would be cheaper. Yeah, so I got stuck at the sewer treatment plant for 6 days. Five or 6 days. It was 5 days. I think it was 5.5 days. Something weird like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point being, what happens at one of these facilities is, well, basically they have filters. All the sewer water comes into the facility. It is filtered. Basically, it's run through giant screens, and all the solid waste. Yeah, that's the nicest way I can say it. Solid waste. Human waste. Solid waste. Whatever basically you have flushed down your toilet, whether it be, you know, when you have to use the bathroom, or when you dump old milk down the drain, or whatever it is. Some people throw drugs, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals down drains. It ends up in the water. It really does. I mean, it's that kind of a system that we have. So solid waste, it all gets put into basically a giant dumpster. It's like a giant dumpster is what it really is. It's actually a container, open top container that is then put on a trailer, like a giant trash truck that, you know, it's like a dumpster. These things are filled up and they're taken to landfills. They are then dumped at the landfill of all the solid waste, and yeah, from there, wherever. Point being, what happens after the solid waste gets removed from the toilet water? The non-solid waste, all the liquids, passes through into other filters and filtration systems where the water is basically cleaned with chlorine and other toxic chemicals. And then it is put back into the local stream, reservoir, waterway that is next to it. Usually it's a stream or a small river, something quite out of the way, and it always leads to a larger body of water. And eventually it gets into all the water systems downstream. Now, if you live somewhere extremely northern Canada, you probably don't have any of the nasty chemicals and feces in your water supply like we do down in the United States. So basically, anyone north of me, anyone in Chicago flushes their toilet. All that water ends up in the local river that goes downstream. So basically, anyone north of Chicago that's already done it, etc., etc. Of course, they're filtering the water and cleaning the water, but essentially you are still showering and cooking with used toilet water if you live in the United States. Yeah, it's true. You can look up what's in your water by your zip code, EWG. They have a water database. So basically, there is a water report issued by the government every, I think it's quarterly. It might be quarterly, don't quote me on that. But it's at least yearly, a water report of what's in local water. So I looked up a suburb of Indianapolis. It's not one I live in, but I know people who live in there. There were 11 contaminants noted and 13 other contaminants noted in this particular water supply. I will post a link to this website in the description so you can look it up by your zip code. Of course, if you're on well water, you probably don't need to, but you never know. Well water can still be contaminated with pesticides and herbicides and things that farmers are using, putting in the water, or things that you yourself have used, spilled anywhere near your well, gas, oil, you know, things like that. It can seep into the ground, and it probably wouldn't be enough to even notice it, like a spilling of gas or something when you're filling your lawnmower, but over time things build up. So keep that in mind, that, and especially farmers, if you have a farm upstream of you, your well water comes from somewhere, so keep that in mind too. So, water report. Arsenic was the #1 thing on there. It's a cancer-causing chemical. It is rated by parts per billion, ppb. So I looked up parts per billion to see exactly what that is, and that's the level of contaminant in your water, and it was like 0.1 point whatever. It was just under 1 whole point. The legal limit is 10 points. Arsenic had, let's just call it 1 point in the local water supply, and that is within legal limits. It's legal to have that much arsenic in my water supply. Well, I don't live there, but you know, that's probably in my water supply too, because I'm close enough that, yeah, city water, no matter where you go, basically. This particular, I'm not going to tell you the name of the water company I looked up. It's one of the biggest ones in Indiana, and there's over 800,000 customers on that particular water supply with that arsenic in it. I thought, look, you know, pretty much everything on the report said it caused cancer. Now, there's pretty much 1 point to everything, generally speaking, on the parts per billion, the levels that they measure it by. In which I said, I looked up parts per billion, what it meant, and it basically means a whole lot of nothing, because it's a bunch of scientific BS and a big math problem if you want to really try to figure it out, and it's just completely pointless. Point of the matter is do you really want 1.0 of any kind of contaminant that causes cancer in your water supply that's seeping into your skin when you take a shower, or when you're cooking, if you don't have any kind of filtration systems, which most people couldn't afford them even if they wanted them, if they knew about it. High levels of fluoride. Fluoride is a contaminant. It is basically, it fries your brain. It makes your brain slower, stupid. It makes you stupid. It really does. Fluoride makes you stupid. That's why they put it in your toothpaste, and that's why they dump it in your water. When I worked at the sewage treatment facility, they had the big blue 55-gallon drums full of fluoride. I mean, they had truckloads of these things, and they were literally dumping it into the finished product of their filtered water that was going into the streams. Fluoride. Watched them do it. I asked them about it too, and they gave me a dirty look and basically avoided the question at all costs. Arsenic. Another one I found was radiological contaminants. Radiation in your water supply, or in the water supply in Indiana if you live there. Bad. So, there's radiation, nitrates, basically herbicides, pesticides. Maybe I'll learn to talk today. All this stuff causes cancer. Now, the legal limit for all of this, I looked up every single one of them. The legal limit is exactly the same, 10 parts per billion, 10. And I had 1 part per billion of pretty much 11 different things. So, you know, it adds up to more than the legal limit in any way you look at it. Then you go to the other contaminants. When you start looking at those, you start finding, you know, heavy metals, certain herbicides. If you look up these chemicals that are in your water supply, it's just, I mean, it's insane. A lot of them have the California disclaimer, because California, I guess, believes that more things cause cancer than the rest of us. Weird. But a lot of them say that this is known by the state of California to cause cancer. Well, yeah, why isn't it known by every state to cause cancer if it causes cancer? But, you know, whatever. Nobody really cares, right? I've had the discussion with members of my family about certain things that they consume and drink. You know that causes cancer, right? Well, it's not causing it right now, and it tastes good. Okay, well, you let me know how it tastes in about 10 years when you can't use the bathroom without someone, you know, helping you, or without a tube inserted into you somewhere. But, yeah, you know, choices. So, Berkey water systems, the big Berkey water systems, they have fluoride filters, they have heavy metal filters and chemical filters. These are going to be your home base. These are, you know, 5 to 7.5 gallons. I think you can get the smaller ones, 2.5 gallons. They're expensive. They're like $200 for one of these filters. You dump your water in, you can take it right out of your tap, you can dump it in the top of it. It comes out the bottom, clean, filtered. And like I said, you can buy the filters that remove chemicals and heavy metals and pesticides and all that such things. Sawyer S3 Select it's basically a Sawyer personal filter. It's a bottle. It's about yay big. I don't have one on me. I want one, but I don't have one yet. I have seen them. But anyway, Sawyer S3 Select. It's the orange one. It filters chemicals, pesticides, and heavy metals. It takes out pharmaceuticals. And like I said, if you've ever flushed Tylenol down in your toilet, Tylenol is now floating in somebody's water supply south of you. Just keep that in mind of how many millions of people that live north of you. That's about it for the water. Like I said, if you have a well system, you're still prone to contaminants, especially if you live near farmland. Farmers dump pesticides and chemicals on their crops by the bucket load, by the gallon, by the plane load, literally. If you've ever seen what is it, crop dusting, that seeps into the water. Just everything seeps into the ground, seeps into the water. It gets into the system. Now, let's just take a brief little thought of what's going to happen in an SHTF scenario when all these factories have to dump chemicals. I know a person that works at a factory that makes a certain thing. They use certain chemicals. It's cleaning materials. Certain cleaning materials require certain chemicals. There is a legal limit approved by the government, by the FDA, of how much of these certain chemicals that you have to have hazardous material, hazmat gloves, like the big rubber hazmat suit type gloves to handle this. And they even have the hazmat suits in there in some cases. But how many of these chemicals they actually dump down their drain that goes into the local stream, that feeds into the local river, that feeds into the local reservoir that is supplying the water for the entire area? I mean, I worked there for a while. I've watched them do it. They do it. So, yeah. Anyway, in an SHTF scenario, how many of these places are going to have these chemicals that they are not going to be able to store? If the temperature increases too much in some of these warehouses, it gets too hot in there, some of the chemicals they're storing, it could cause a very large problem for them, for anyone around them. And maybe if they live somewhere close to there, maybe upstream, they probably don't want that stuff catching fire downstream close to their house. So what's the best way to dispose of it? If you dump it in the local water supply, it runs downriver, and if it causes somebody else a problem down there, it doesn't affect you, because we don't have to care. Because as long as it doesn't affect us, we don't care, right? That's just how it is with the people of America. As long as it's not in our bubble, oh well. So food for thought. Our planet's spinning at like so many thousand miles per hour. The solar system itself is spinning around thousands of miles an hour. I don't do the exact math on this, but let's just say we're moving at extremely high. The planet itself is moving at high rates of speed. The solar system, the sun, all of it is moving at high rates of speed. So if God doesn't exist, who's driving this thing? You know, just wondering. See you later.